Didn't read it earlier.
You know, one of the things I think is so interesting about the TEMS and NEMS conferences is it's laser focused on mining, but at the same time, we see both ends of the spectrum. We were just learning about ERCOT. There's been mention of local legislation, oil and gas, mega miners, large operations. But then just on Monday, we were talking about open sourcing the Ember One platform, the efforts of the 256 Foundation, dismantling the proprietary mining empire, and now we're here to talk about home mining. So it's funny, we view the world a little bit differently, I think, when it comes to Bitcoin mining. We're going to maybe spice it up a little bit here. But it's fascinating to me to see just the two ends of the spectrum for Bitcoin mining. So why don't we start with just introductions? Chances are, if you've heard or seen of BitAxe, that's this guy in the middle here, Scott. If you've bought a BitAxe, that's Nolan there on the end. And if you've ever had a crazy idea about what you may be able to do with a Bitcoin miner, Neil's probably already done it. So why don't we start with Nolan on the end there, if you want to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and we'll work our way down.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nolan Hefner. I run Pleb Source. We like to say that I'm the guy that runs the show, but Marshall's the pretty face behind it. But yeah, so my background is in mining. I've run small mines, I've run medium-sized mines. The highest I've gotten is 6 megawatts. But at that point, all of the work that I'd done to reach that level was trying to figure out how to make it to where I could explain to my dad that I don't work at Bitcoin. So going through different iterations of all these different firmwares and these different GUIs and things that I can't explain to people, how everything works, it came down to what is a device that I can take and hand to someone and have them understand how it works from beginning to end in 10 minutes. And this guy basically provided a platform for that. So this has been from a learning opportunity all the way up through just being able to educate so many people. And so with that, bringing it to as many people as possible is kind of the goal as well, making the barrier to entry as low as possible too. So it's been cool.
My name's Scott. So at some point several years ago, I moved into this new office and electricity was included in the rent. And so I was like, okay, I got an idea. I'm going to get some S9s and I'm going to plug them in and I'm going to get rich. This is fantastic. Like everything's fine. So I got the S9s. I rewired it for 220 in the office. That was easy. But then I plugged them all in. I was like, wait a second, these things are crazy loud. I can't also be in here with these things running. So then I was like, okay, I did a little bit of work and I set them up so they would just run at night when I wasn't there. But it turned out that there was some like apartments or whatever above and they complained. It was like, what am I doing here? So I really wanted to do some Bitcoin mining. I'm also an electrical engineer. So I was like, I need to do something about this. So that was kind of the impetus for starting the BitAxe project. It was this very long, slippery slope into this whole new project and figuring out how these chips work to do it. But it was, I wanted to run a Bitcoin miner in a room that I was also in.
All right, I'm going to tell a condo story then. If you're starting with the origin stories, I got a couple of S9s for free from just a random guy on Twitter. They were valueless at the time. They weren't profitable. I just plugged them in a vacant condo I had because I was flipping houses, live in Minnesota, needed to heat it. So checked back in on them, and all of a sudden they're paying my mortgage, paying the HOA, paying the electric, and they're the best tenants you could ever possibly ask for. So, I mean, it doesn't take a genius to realize how many more of these do I need, and I never have to work again. And then fast forward 5 or 6 years, and I realized it's a lot more work than having a job. So this is where we are, and now I'm just a merchant of hash rate. I sell hardware, property, power. It's been a fun ride.
And for anyone who doesn't know me, I am Tyler Stevens. I'm the author of Bitcoin Mining Heat Reuse. It must be pretty hot down here in Texas because no one's taking those books home. Please do, because I don't want to bring them back to Denver. And I also help run the space, Denver's Bitcoin Hub, which is not part of Bitcoin Park, just FYI. So,
you forgot to include that this particular summit is very Texas-centric. They're selling a lot of Texas down here.
Everybody likes a hot tub or a hot pool, though, so we'll find something for it. Home mining, I think what's fascinating about it is, it was mentioned a lot yesterday, is Bob Burnett said this, Bitcoin is participatory, so you have to participate and do your part. And I think home miners are more likely to be the guys running the node, getting under the hood, figuring it out, right? Because at the end of the day, every person who buys a BitAxe is a mine operator, whether they like it or not. And something I saw online that was interesting was the number of solo blocks mined each year. And in 2015, right around when the S9 came out, it was over 100. And by 2019, that tanked to 2. And then in the last 3 years, we've seen 8, 9. We're already at 10 this year, and it's not even halfway through the year. These are blocks that the big mining pools aren't winning. That's money they're not getting paid. What do you think about that, Scott? Do you think home mining will become a larger and larger share of blocks that are hit every 10 minutes? Solo miners, pool miners, even for smaller scale? And what does it mean for the bigger guys?
Yes, absolutely. It is going to become a bigger thing. It turns out that some people are interested in doing this. It's growing really fast. I think that sort of period you talked about in which there was no solo mining blocks, it was a period of great expansion of industrial mining, and there just wasn't a lot of equipment that was practical. I mean, we got like legendary hackers here who are just like, yeah, I'm gonna like do what it takes. I'll have like a separate house to run my miners in, but that takes quite a dedication and a lot of patience to get that set up. And so I think a lot of people weren't going to do that, especially if they weren't like, just totally ridiculous and insane and into Bitcoin mining at all costs. So yeah, I think it's going to grow. The BitAxe has already spawned a bunch of other mining projects, open source miners, small miners, home miners. We saw like Gannon got into this. They're making a home miner, right? There's a couple like Heatbit's making a heater. So I think we're going to see more and more people doing those because it makes a lot of sense, right? It's like this heat reuse thing, like get paid to do it. And there's a lot of people who like tinkering and playing around with it, and like a BitAxe and those smaller home miners, while they aren't good for heat reuse, are good for just, I don't know, the kind of people that might make a economically irrational decision to buy a boat or like hot rod their car. It's just fun to screw around with and play with, and that's infectious, and more people doing it. So I think we'll see this grow as like the optionality to do it increases.
And that's where I see the incentives are very different, because mining as a business, your incentive is an economic driver. You have to make money. You have to mine more Bitcoin than the cost of power, the cost of your overhead, your salaries, whatever it may be, public shareholders, etc. But we all have stories here where that's not how it works for us. It could be ideological, right? I'm just going to have a little 15-watt BitAxe that uses less power than my iPhone charger, and I can support the network, and maybe I'll win the lottery. Or I know, Nolan, you have a personal story I'd like you to share, too, about the Texas freeze. Right? Why don't you walk through that? Because that's a pretty useful incentive you had to mine in your apartment.
Yeah, so I have a very small apartment. It's like 750 square feet. And during the freeze, I found out that I moved into an apartment that wasn't quite installed correctly. So my heater, if you look at the thermostat, didn't have the heater actually attached. So it was 41 degrees when I woke up one of the days in December, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. My heater's turned on, no sound, doesn't smell like a new heater smell. So I was like, okay, what can I do here? So I went to the office and I procured for free a stealth miner that one of our friends, Sat Stacking Pleb, makes, and it's an awesome device, but it was perfect for my little apartment that it kept the ambient temperature 74 degrees Fahrenheit the whole freeze. My apartment never got colder, never got warmer, just stayed hashing the whole time. And I compared my power bill across the month to my neighbor's. He paid $230 to keep his heater on. I got paid $4. So I was pretty stoked about that, but the practicality of it, when you're already somebody like me who needs white noise, it's just, it fills the air and it keeps you warm. So it's dual purpose. And like you mentioned, the heat bit, something like that's also an air purifier. So it's multi-purpose, and you can opt in and opt out at any given point. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think that's where the future of home mining really is going to make sense. Whether we see the mining mania again, where efficiency was irrelevant, the fact that you were paying 15, 20 cents per kilowatt hour for your residential electric, that was irrelevant. It didn't matter. It was plug in, and you're going to make money. and you're going to live like a king. Obviously, that's over. So now it comes to the utility of the machine itself. Sure, it's mining you Bitcoin, but also that heat it's producing would be money you're spending. If it can be a replacement for money you're spending on that heat otherwise, then it only makes sense. Whether you just consider it a rebate and turn it into cash to pay your electric, or you hold the Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm going to pick on something that was said last panel, which is you're screwed if your power is 15 cents for mining. That's the same cost per kilowatt equivalent as propane heat. So anyone who's in a rural location heating, where I live in Colorado, you can mine Bitcoin at 15 cents a kilowatt. You no longer have your propane bill. You don't have to shovel your driveway. You don't have to get a truck to deliver it. And you get non-KYC sats every month. And so I'm going to mine under that scenario. So how do the larger players compete with the home miners who are kind of immune to this? I don't look at the hash price index. I'm just going to pay. I'm going to be nice and cozy and comfy. I'm going to stay warm, like we're talking about now. And we're going to continue to mine Bitcoin. And there's millions of people who do that. How do they compete with that?
It's hard to compete with because maybe now you'll have luxuries that you didn't have before. Why would you need or want to pay for a heated driveway? Why? Everybody wants a hot tub. Everybody refuses to get a hot tub because they're too expensive to heat. And that's all things that you could have with otherwise wasted heat.
It's going to be really hard to compete with. I mean, the only way that I think they can compete now is just having significantly larger scale. But like you said, there's millions of people that are out there that will do this. This, will represent exahashes on the network for sure. And it's a squirrely bunch, right? They're never, like you said, they're not paying attention to the hash price. They're never going to like curtail and turn this off. They are like basically immune to regulations because no one even knows that they're running it in the first place. Like it's a very robust set of miners just by the fact that if it's like a BitAxe, they might even just forget that they had it plugged in. So that's going to be very hard to compete with.
And the other side of the coin is the mega miners. There may be a purchaser of that massive amount of electricity in the future that's willing to pay more than the miners are, where right now miners, their margins are who can race to zero the quickest and still be profitable. Then that means you will be the most successful miner, and they may just become power distributors themselves when somebody's willing to pay more for that electric.
It's crazy to think about the scale here too. And the reason I don't think as many people think about home mining is it's been a challenge, right? The machines went industrial. You couldn't really run one in your house unless you sacrificed a dryer outlet or you had an electric car charger in your garage, really. But we're seeing thousands and thousands of BitAxes sold, right, Nolan?
Yeah, it's the turnout's been amazing. But like I said earlier, just making sure that anybody who wants to be a part of the ecosystem can is what I think is driving the faster adoption. The more people that don't have the barrier to entry of, oh man, it's too expensive, or oh, I don't really want to do that. Now it's, oh, okay, I have one too. Awesome. And now you can decide how you want to direct it, where you want to point it, how you want to maintain it. It's just, I like to see more people talking about it in a positive way as opposed to thinking, oh, I missed the boat. What boat? There was never a boat. We're all in this boat, if there is a boat.
And I think right now is a very good time to get exposed, not because mining conditions themselves are great, but I mean, if the president of the United States has two sons that are aping into mining, then we're probably going to have a few good years of anything we need regulation-wise.
I want to expand on this a little bit because I think the BitAxe movement is a great orange pilling tool. For many people, mining is maybe perhaps the last thing they learn about Bitcoin. It's a little bit, you got to be energy mindset it a little bit. It's a little bit more technical, etc. It felt out of reach for a few years. But now I'm sure we're seeing people just ape into a $150 BitAxe and set it up and become a sovereign actor in the network. And I think that heat reuse hopefully is the Trojan horse to bring that to the masses, right? Because the people buying the BitAxe, I view the BitAxe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Scott, as an ideological, it's like a physical manifestation of the problems with the mining industry. The fact that all that hard work that you had to go through to make a desktop miner is a representation of the challenges we're trying to overcome to bring mining back home. And I think that heating appliances can be that Trojan horse to say, do you want to cut your heating bill or get paid to do this? Or you don't even have to know what's happening, right? There could be a company that comes and makes X, Y, and Z electric product. By the way, electric heating, Bitcoin mining, electric heating good, Bitcoin mining bad. Well, they're the same thing, so sorry. That's my view. What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it was a reaction to me not like being able to get the sort of Bitcoin miner that was practical to run at home. So it's a manifestation, like you said, of the problems in the sort of mining industry and what is available. What was I going to say?
Any innovation in the ASIC space is welcome, and that applies both to, I mean, the BitAxe, phenomenal for anyone to be able to run it regardless of noise or heat or anything like that, or all the things that go along with it. But then also it's like you see the big players in the ASIC industry, they're not accommodating to anyone. The current ASIC is a terrible design for having 10,000 of them lined up on a wall, consuming megawatts, if not half a gigawatt of power, and they just don't care. They don't need to care, and that's where innovation is really just fantastic to see.
It's a gateway drug to Bitcoin mining, and also a gateway drug to Bitcoin mining development. Right? We're getting people who are tinkering on this stuff and screwing around, and have the permission to modify it. But there's a lot of like seriously smart engineers who are digging in on this, and these sort of developments and things, they will be incorporated into large-scale mining and benefit large-scale mining, and the people who are doing it can go and work for large-scale mining companies too. So it's a gateway drug in both like users and developers.
And it's it's very similar to the S9 stories we're telling, where it's like we get our S9s for nothing and playing around with them, and next thing you know, we're on stages talking to people.
I thought it was well put yesterday. I think maybe Ryan said it, was that the efforts from the 256 Foundation, the open source firmware, hashboard, control board, mining pool, it commoditizes the Bitcoin mining software stack, right? And it clicked for me with an analogy, which is like the BitAxe movement and all these projects to heat your home and put them into your HVAC duct. It's like this. So imagine someone said, you got to go make a commuter car. There's no commuter cars. There's only super high performance luxury cars, and the owner's manual is in Chinese, and you can't get any of the documentation for anything, and you got to buy them used, and they're very unreliable, and then you have to tear it down to the frame, take out the engine. Again, you can't read the owner's manual. You then have to rebuild a commuter car, and then people like Nolan have to try and sell it for profit. That's the current mining industry right now. And it's insane because the people that spend the hundreds of millions of dollars to build the ASIC chips, these efficient engines in this analogy, right? Just like Ford engines are in Range Rovers, they didn't need to reinvent the wheel there, but that's what's having to be done in the ASIC industry, because they just sell the whole system as a complete package instead of focusing their efforts on making a really nice, high-performance, efficient chip, giving documentation, selling it to us and saying, have at it, go play around with it, integrate it into whatever you want. So I'm curious, this is open to anyone, what will we see from the open source commoditized tech stack for the home miners, the plebs, but then also for the bigger players in the room that are going to have, they have great curtailment contracts, or they have off-grid sites where they can mine in the megawatt scale. What will be available to them with an open source solution?
I was going to butt in here and say that one of the main things that I've seen recently is that a lot of the ASIC manufacturers don't sell their chips directly to people like us. And so the acquisition of chips themselves is so terribly hard. You have to harvest the chips from hashboards by yourself. And that's not fun. And you also have lots of losses. And so companies like Auradine coming in and being able to say, hey, we'll give you these on trays. We'll give you these on reels. What can we do for you? And so that, plus being efficient, some people value more efficiency, some people value more performance. It just depends on what you're looking for. They can fit that bill and also allow people like Scott to go, hey, I can make something out of this. And like you said, with everything being in Chinese, for example, everything's in English, made in the US. These are like you can access these. So it's cool to have access to something like that as opposed to having to completely write the entire manual by yourself. So,
And that's great to see what the competition does. Like it's guys like Scott that are making competition in a way, because now that's a viable, valuable product to the market. And somebody like Bitmain, they want to sell you a board that you have to disassemble. There's a lot of extra crap in there that they get to sell you, whether you're using it or not. So it's beneficial to them. It's the same with the miners that are 10,000 deep, and yeah, I mean that's there. And now that there's competition, that's not going to be the case anymore. They will listen to the customer.
I think it's sort of like where we are and like what the industry is going to see from developments, open source developments, like you're asking. Right now, we're like, if we relate this to the computer industry, we're in the like mainframe era. We have like IBM, Big Blue, that makes computers the size of rooms, and they basically do one thing, which is like payroll accounting. And we're sort of here being like, we got this idea for like personal computers, and we're just kind of hacking them together. Actually, that's how it started. It was called the Homebrew Computer Club. It was just a bunch of random dudes like hacking on like smaller computers. They were taking chips that were meant for other industries like video games and things like that, and making them into computers that people could put in their house. It's like there's a lot of parallels here. It's really neat. But as we know, personal computers became a pretty big industry, and I think there's going to be a lot there. And one of the things that open source gets you is exponential development, right? If you wanted to work on computers during the like IBM mainframe era, you had to go get a job at IBM and wear a suit famously and just like go, be a part of that bureaucracy. But once it opens up and more people can get involved, we see exponential growth in development because you can just do it. You can just start hacking on it. You can start a new company in your garage that like absolutely changes the world. You don't have to ask anyone for permission to do it.
Without having to rebuild the Lamborghini engine.
Yeah, because that you don't have to reinvent the wheel just to get started with your idea.
Something I haven't fully squared in my head. It's a question I don't have answered. Is what happens when the ASIC chips are available in mass quantities? Because right now, a lot of these home mining devices, applications, use cases, appliances that I'm interested in, BitAxe devices, they rely on retrofitting, right? You're getting used hardware that's heavily depreciated, and the efficiency isn't as important to us, so I can take that 40 joule per terahash chip, right? It's still just offsetting my heating bill. I don't look at the hash price. But it's labor intensive, it's a pain in the ass. Now, if chips are available and documented, are they going to be too expensive? Because I'm also not spending $10,000 on a water heater. So how do you guys see that playing out? Do you think there will always be a market for almost breathing a second life into these ASIC chips? Maybe the larger industrial guys could offload them and we find some slick process to retrofit them and give them that 5-10 extra years of service life, less waste? Or do you think that direct chip access will end up being the whole name of the game in home mining?
Like Nolan said, repurposing used chips is very difficult. Like there's been stories I've heard of BitAxe manufacturers, just rolling to a contract manufacturer, like someone who builds electronics for, that you can hire out. And like, okay, yeah, I can totally build this thing, but what's this one part right here? Like, how do I get that? And you're like, you just unsolder it from this other one. And they're like, no, get out of here. I think what we're going to see, you're right. So the new chips, the latest and greatest, 3 nanometer, highest efficiency chips are very expensive. I mean, $30+ each, which is not really fantastic. But I think as we actually see mining ASIC manufacturers now who are using older processes because the chips are cheaper, and then you can underclock them and do various tricks to get that like hash rate up. So I think we'll see more of those options. And these are the underdogs that are coming up because they don't have that TSMC allocation or whatever, but they still want to like make stuff, and they'll see these applications, which are now becoming more of a market. And I think that there will be new chips available that are also affordable. Maybe they don't have the latest and greatest efficiency, but like you said, that's fine.
I think another way to look at this from like a rose-tinted goggles perspective, my young and spry mind would like to potentially look at is that if you have chips that are widely available and you don't have to waste a ton of labor and a ton of like waste product with heat sinks, PCBs, all these different other pieces of what makes a hash board or a miner, now you have direct to consumer chips, well, direct to manufacturer, I guess, in this case. But what that could lead to is that all these big miners, like we'll just use Bitmain as the easy example, nobody wants to buy their machines anymore that are outdated. So now you have them producing less overseas and bringing it over here, whether you're for that or against that doesn't matter, right? It means that it forces innovation because now we have more efficient chips that are more available, and it could lead to this explosion of innovation without the need for another outside source that we have that's the source for everything. So I think it could lead forward rather quickly and suddenly, but I don't think that a lot of people would necessarily subscribe to that yet because we haven't seen the benefits of it. I think soon, though.
Yeah, fair enough.
Rose Tinagog was, like I said, it's a lot to ask, but
Switching gears here a little bit, what insights do you think the larger guys, be it the ASIC developers to the people installing hundreds of machines on racks, could learn from the home miners and their pain points and their experiences? Because that's not to say we don't have challenges, right? I mean, I can sit here and say, I don't care about hash price as many times as I want, but there's still some big challenges to solve, like how do I get my plumber to know what the hell this thing is? But what do you think we could share with the mega miners, the industrial operators, the people designing the chips to help further our movement and bring mining back home?
We can share how miners work.
Rob Warren can do that.
Like how they work on a technical level. I think a lot of people are probably familiar with the Bitmain repair guides, which leave a lot to be desired. Anyone who's trying to maintain a large fleet of miners knows that they break all the time, and you end up getting miner repairmen that have just kind of over time hacked, various solutions to fixing common problems. But we don't have a really deep fundamental understanding of how these machines work. And I think a lot of this work that we've done for the BitAxe is reverse engineering, but when we start getting more ASIC manufacturers online and they're providing data sheets, we can provide some pretty awesome insight to people who are running lots of machines as to how these work. And another cool story is that I've heard from lots of large mining companies is that they buy BitAxes for their employees so they can try mining. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and then again, back to the competition, that's really what's going to spark the innovation, right? And that's, to your point, the whole, lost my train of thought.
That's all right. Well, the flip side of this question is what can we learn from the professionals, the guys making this stuff? And this question makes me think of that meme of John Hamm in the elevator from Mad Men where he's like, I don't think about you at all. But I shouldn't have that mindset. We should probably be involved with them. So what could we learn from their expertise to further benefit home mining? I think that ASIC chip access is a big one in that documentation, those sheets you just described, Scott, right? Because that is the piece of the puzzle that isn't really feasible for the average company to go out and do, spin up a silicon fab, even get their attention, right? Maybe it's something like waving our hand and saying, give us your bin chips, or if you have any leftover chips from last generation, right? Is there anything else that you guys can think of where we can be better at absorbing learning from them for the home mining movement to further accelerate bringing hash rate back home, bringing people up to speed on how mining works, integrating into their homes and businesses?
The large miners, they by definition are laser focused on efficiency and extracting the most value possible out of their mining setups. And so this is advancements in cooling technology. We had a cool talk with Marshall before about different ways of cooling these chips. They're trying everything. This is how you make money in the mining business, is you figure those things out. And so that kind of stuff and those innovations there do, obviously on a much smaller scale, come back to home mining and heat reuse and things, because they're absolutely driven to figure these things out. And whole industries come up around it, right? We're talking about the different immersion cooling fluids that have been developed specifically for Bitcoin mining. I mean, these are industries that exist because mega mining is so large, and I think we can all benefit from that.
And I think there's some examples of ways that it's just naturally emerged as well. So, transition from air-cooled miners to immersion while hydro wasn't fully there yet. I think immersion lived and breathed for the reason that the air-cooled miners kept changing form factor. You can just dunk them in a bathtub. But with hydro miners, it's like, oh, this is great for heat reuse. I can send that heat somewhere else. Or even Nolan and I were talking about earlier, I don't know if you want to expand on this, but Auradyn's efforts to make ramp times much faster for curtailment, that's actually extremely beneficial for heat reuse because I'm trying to match my hash rate target to my heat demand. I don't want it to be 78 degrees in my house when I tell it to be 72. That slow ramp up or down time can overshoot, right? I'm trying to hit that target temperature. And so accidentally, they created a feature that is extremely interesting to me.
Well, it's not accidental. In their major industrial miners, they have individually addressable domains, and so because of that, and also because of just how robust the chips are, they can be tuned so rapidly. So for curtailment purposes, mainly, you have these chips that are able to go from full bore all the way to nothing in a split second, and then oh wait, never mind, back to full, and it doesn't. There's no issues there. So for a home miner, for somebody that's using it like you're saying, I want it to be 74 degrees, like I had my Stealth, right? That was just something that happened to be perfect for me. But when it comes to these chips, you want to be able to, I guess, modulate how much energy you're using and how efficient they are at a moment's notice. You can do that without fear of damaging your chips. And so when you have something that's robust and you don't have to worry about damaging your chip, or in some cases, overvolting it somehow, you have more people that are willing to take a risk on something because there is way less risk. You don't have to buy a $150 BitAxe, $130 BitAxe, $170 BitAxe and go, oh, I need custom cooling for this because it's getting too hot, or I need to be able to modulate again this better. But you don't have to anymore. There's no risk there, and the chips can handle themselves and also give you the direct feedback of I'm working or I'm not working, and this is exactly how efficient I'm being doing it. So,
And what me and you do, Tyler, an on-demand heat. I mean, that's the suite of products that offers itself to would just be phenomenal. I mean, heat is everywhere. Heat is needed for everything. So.
Yeah, to put it in perspective, if 1% of HVAC and water heat was converted to hash rate, it would add 2 zettahash to the network. So if 1% of HVAC, forced air, and hot water tanks globally was converted to hash rate, it would add 2 zettahash to the network. 1 zettahash. So it would over double it. So I think home mining might be a large proportion of hash rate in the future. We can probably end with that.